morning, and welcome to another episode of the Closer's Inner Circle podcast, hosted by your partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my co-host, Ben Gay III, we are diving into the world of sales mastery, and we're going back to a gem from the Closers Part 2. Now, these books, 1 and 2, are widely known across the globe, write it down, globe, as the sales Bibles. And today we discuss sales infiltration strategies from the Closers Part 2. We're working again on episode 4 of Sales Infiltration. And if you're not familiar with Ben Gay III, gasp, how can you not be? He is renowned as one of the foremost sales trainers and has left an indelible mark on countless careers, mine included, and businesses through his transformative teaching. So as we're talking about the Closers Inner Circle podcast, we're picking up from where we left off last time, Sales Infiltration, the beginning of which is found on page, 257. But we are now opening up to page 261, and we're on part 4, I think I mentioned. So you can go back 3 episodes and catch up with this. Oh, and by the way, do you have questions about sales? We love to hear from our audience, and we will answer them on the show. Ben, good morning. Before we get going, can you tell people where to find you and how to send their sales questions to us, and where can they find the books?
Super. Yes, to answer your question, good morning, everyone. To answer your first question, the way you get a question to us, besides contacting Denise directly also, but if you want to send it to me as a starting point, send it to B as in Ben, F as in Frank, G as in Gay, the numeral 3, BFG3 at DirectCon, that's short for Direct Connect, DirectCon.net, and just say question, and I'll print it out and hang on to it to the following Wednesday. And we refer to the Closers Part 2 frequently on these broadcasts and teach from them. If you don't have your copy of the Closers Part 2 or any of the Closers series, which is about to be joined by the Closers Part 4 on podcasting, written by our beloved host, Denise Griffitts, go to stores, like a store you go shop in, stores.ebay.com/ all one word, Ronzoni Books, RONZONE books, BOOKS, Ronzoni Books. And as Denise just mentioned, they'll be signed and dated. And if you order before 2 p.m. Pacific time, they will go out that day, if not the following business day. So rather than wait to the end of the show, now you know what we're teaching from. And it's easier. It's like going to church and being given a hymnal when they start singing the songs. If you have your copies of the material, which you ought to have if you're in professional selling anyway, but if you're working with us on these podcasts, it makes life a lot easier and more beneficial to have the same material in front of you that Denise and I have in front of us. So, Denise, that answers that question.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I never even thought of it. I'm one of those people, if I hit a church, people kind of swivel and look at me like, she's a
Somebody die?
stranger. Yeah, I don't think we know her. Okay, so what you mentioned earlier in the green room that you had a couple of questions that had landed on your desk.
Yes. Question number 1 was you talk about, and he remains anonymous for some bizarre reason, but it says you talk a lot about systems and systemization. What do you mean by that, and how can we apply it? Well, what you do, first of all, and I understand I'm talking to a generation that does everything on computers right up until the power goes off or your site crashes or something. I, in addition to a computer, use the at a glance standard diary. Speaking of hymnals, it looks like a hymnal, and I'll give you the email address. Here we go. To reorder, it says at a glance, all one word, at a glance.com/reorder. If you're not reorder, maybe you just leave that off, but go to their website, and the product number you're looking for is S as in Sam, D as in David, 389. And I repeat, looks like a hymnal. I've got the 2024 in front of me and the 2025, and for next year, which I order about 6 months into before the new year every year. So you get a pen and you get your calendar, and systemization means taking those things that can be predictable and systematize, and you start putting them in the diary. I'm ever being asked, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I don't know. It's in the calendar. When I see the calendar, I'll know what I'm doing tomorrow. In the calendar, I write things that I do every day. I'll give you an example, just looking at the thing in front of me right now. It says CC, and then it says FB, and then it says TF. CC means credit card payments, check the bank balances, and so on. In other words, to me, that's code for do that, and I do it every day. And when we get to Friday, it says move up next week. And that would include those three because they come in a pack. Credit cards, meaning checks the bills. Facebook, FB, that means send out a Facebook notification just to keep my name in the mix and so on. I don't do it every day, by the way. I do it based on, did I just send something out yesterday? Did I share something with thousands of people? Because I don't want to be a nuisance. But it means that I think about it once a day, and most days post something on Facebook. And then it says TF, that's tickler file. There are things that I have on paper, sheets of paper or whatever, that are in the tickler file for the proper day. It's like an accordion file you get at your local office supply store or Amazon, I guess. So it means check the tickler file. So if I'm supposed to do something on the 29th of next month, well, let's say on the 19th of next month, I drop it in 19, and I don't have to think about it, because on the 19th of next month, it says tickler file, which means I will look in the tickler file for that day, and there will be that piece of paper. So that little system on three important things in my life is systematize. Where this all started was one day, Dr. Napoleon Hill was up at the house, and I thought he was asleep. And when we didn't have to be in the office, he liked to sleep in. And so I'm sitting out on the side deck, hidden away, I thought, looking out over San Francisco Bay and what a wonderful life we were enjoying, and clipping my toenails. And again, in privacy. And Dr. Hill comes wandering around the corner of the deck with a coffee cup in his hand and said, "Hi, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm embarrassed to tell you, Dr. Hill, I'm clipping my toenails. They had gotten where they're snagging on my socks or something." He said, "How often do you do that?" And I said, "Well, whenever they need it." He said, No. Toenails are not a mystery. They need clipping every, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Go get your diary. So, which he'd already made me get. It was a different model, but the same concept. So I went and got my diary. He said, "All right, you're trimming them today. How long do you think it's been?" I said, "I don't know, 6 weeks." He said, "Well, it was obviously too long."
No
So,
kidding. I just cringed when you said 6 weeks.
yeah, well, it was when my socks started tearing,
Oh,
was the real answer. So he said, "Well, let's start with 4 weeks. Today is today. Count out 4 weeks." It was a Saturday. And I counted out 4 Saturdays, and I wrote trim toenails dash move up 4 weeks question mark, meaning when I next trim my toenails, was that in time, too soon, too late, or whatever, because it determined where I moved it up to when I did it. So I put it move up 4 weeks question mark. And I forget whether that actually worked or not. It's what I use now. My toenails have either slowed down a little bit or gone faster. He said, "Now you don't have to worry about trimming your toenails ever again. It's part of your daily success system. And it falls to, I'll do the lightweight ones on Wednesday, June 26, 10 a.m., highlighted in yellow, Denise show. And I move that up 4 weeks at a time. I know it in my head. That's one of the few I actually know that I don't do anything but get on this show at 10 a.m. on
And take out the trash.
yeah, and well, yeah, and right beneath your show it says garbage and recycle. Recycle is every other week. Garbage is every week. And then there's grass trimmings. That's the other every other week. And those are all in the calendar and moved up. And I don't cross out the move up until it's actually been moved up. So this morning, if I hadn't already looked at it, one would be there's a payment that's due today, a pretty significant payment. So I have a question mark after that. And I'll ask Gigi, did this come in? She's not here right now. And if it's yes, cross it out. Don't have to worry about it till next month. Then before the day is over, garbage and recycle will go to the street. I will have done this show. Toot Your Own Horn is a thing I run every few weeks, where people can go on our site and put in what they're doing with links to their thing. Also, here's a little, and then credit card FB and TF are also there. And feed fish. I feed fish twice a week. We have a pond in the back where we keep fish. One, because they amuse me, and two, we keep thousands of mosquito eaters, little bitty fish that eat mosquito eggs. No one within half a mile of our house has seen a mosquito in years because these little guys eat them. But fearing that there's not enough for the fish, I feed them also on Wednesdays and Fridays. It's in the calendar. They're never going to starve to death because when I feed them today, I'll move it up to next Wednesday. When I get to Friday and feed them, I'll move that up to Friday. So these seems like silly little ones, but they keep me on track with all sorts of things. And Gigi was feeling a little down after we went through COVID a while ago. We went and got a vitamin B12 shot for her. Tomorrow will be 3 weeks since her vitamin B12 shot. I was instructed by the doctor to find out how she felt after 3 weeks because they plan on doing it once a month for a while. But he said we can make it 3 weeks depending on how she feels. I'm a political junkie written on 3 lines, which is highly unusual. I'm a 1-line person per page here, all caps and yellowed out, 6 p.m. That's Pacific, debate. There's nothing that's going to keep me away from the Biden-Trump debate tomorrow at 6 p.m.
So you have a stronger stomach than I do. I'll call
yeah,
you
well,
and you can tell me how
I
it
may,
went.
I may take some Pepto-Bismol before I. And then Friday, let me just scan through this real quick. I know when you're not looking at the same thing I am, it's a little frustrating, but there's looks like about 5 things I do at the end of every month. End of every month. This month falls on a Friday. I don't put important things on Saturday or Sunday. Delete old emails. Delete old trash emails. Go to the monthly tickler file. That's like the daily tickler file, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the monthly tickler file covers certain things all month long. It'll be for July. Don't leave it to chance. Give the June receipts, credit card slips, and so on to accounting. I put them in, I take them every day and put them in an envelope. The envelope once a month goes to accounting. And then it goes on down through a bunch of other stuff, some business, some whatever. Here's one, I won't give his name, but a good friend of mine who we do a good deal of business with needed a little break for financial reasons. It says 15 weeks, his name, since he asked for a little break. Move up, question mark, or text him, question mark. So tomorrow, Friday, I'll decide whether or not to do that. But all of this stuff and there's little things like spin the mattress in the bedroom, which the guy, when he sold me the mattress, told me to do every 12 weeks. So I've been spinning it every 12 weeks since we bought it. I must be the only person on the planet that ever followed his advice. But it says to do it. I have to think about it. And I haven't thought about it in about 12 weeks. Wouldn't have thought about it now, but it's written on the calendar. So I systematize everything that I possibly can and write it down. Here's the real benefit. A, nothing gets lost. I don't forget to spin the mattress or check the bank balances or okay bills to be paid or whatever. That's one. Two, and for me, this is the most important thing. I'm not ever walking around trying to remember that thing that I should have remembered. What is it I do today? I was going to do something today. What was it? The way I find out what was it, I turn to Wednesday, June 26th, and I do what it says there. And it takes all that. I probably told you a couple of times, one long weekend on the memo pads I have all over the house and all over the office and beside the bed and in the bathroom. A long weekend is only significant because it was 3 days of sort of downtime. I don't slow down, but the calls and incoming do. I can always tell when it's Friday at noon, the emails and so on from salespeople drop off because most salespeople have a 3-day weekend every weekend. So I know it's Friday just because of the phone volume drop and email drop. But I don't have to wonder what's going on because it's written down, and that frees up my mind to come up with other things on that long weekend. When I went around to the various memo pads and checked them and ripped them off to take them to the office, I had 71 ideas or reminders that had come to me in those 3 days, and I wrote them on the various nearby legal pads. 71. Now, a lot of you people are a lot smarter than I am, but I can tell you of the 71 things I wrote down so I wouldn't forget them. I doubt I would have remembered 4 of them if I hadn't written them down. Now, writing them down doesn't mean you necessarily do them. I've had great ideas on Friday afternoons, and then it didn't pop up till I ripped off those sheets on Monday morning. I go, God, who was thinking of that? That's a stupid idea. So there's still editing that goes on before it gets into the daily success system, but it goes on. A quick one on a personal level, Dr. Hill had 1 annulment and 2 divorces by the time he died, and I don't remember the details or care, but didn't have a good relationship with his children. So that was a fascinating thing to him. He zeroed in on. That isn't what he was hired to do when he became my mentor, but it was among the things he took on. I remember one day he approached me in the office. He said, how do you fit? Because we had just flown, I think we picked him up in Columbia, South Carolina, and flew him back to California, and then had been 2 or 3 other places in the meantime. He said, how do you deal with your family relations? And he was staying at the house. We weren't fighting in front of him, but he still asked the question mainly because of time. I said, oh, yeah, I do pretty well. I fit family into the nooks and crannies. And he said, oh, we found the problem. I didn't know we had a problem, but we found the problem. What he said was, first you do family, then you fit business into the nooks and crannies. Now people say, oh, I've got to work and so on. If I followed you around with a memo pad or a legal pad all day long, I could find you several hours of stuff that could have been used differently, spent differently, or what have you. And the work not only contracts to fit the time allowed, it expands to fit the time allowed. If you have a busy 5-day week and I say, oh, we're going to let you work 4 days, trust me, you'll get it all done in 4 days.
Oh, yeah, you'll find a way.
Sure. So he said, we found the problem. First, he said, get your calendar. And so I got my calendar. And he says, you guys like to go over to the coast, don't you? And I said, yeah, we go over whenever we get a chance, take a long weekend. 4 or 5 days is all I can do before I'm going crazy. And this conversation was before cell phones and all and laptops. So today I might be able to go a little longer, but we just keep it at 4 days. And we had a little chat and decided that we ought to start out with 4 long weekends somewhere, preferably over at the coast, Northern California coastline, Mendocino, Big Sur, etc. Short drive from where we are, and I love it there, as does Gigi.
Well,
So we said,
Mendocino is my favorite town in California. Always has.
yeah, yeah. So he said, let's block those out. So on the calendar, I blocked out 4 4-day weekends at the coast, wrote them in, and made some signal that this is sacrosanct. We're not going to do anything else. He said, now, how often do you eat out? And I said, well, we eat out because we entertain almost, 4 or 5 times a week, and plus lunches. He said, no, no. How often do you and your wife eat out together alone? I said, well, nooks and crannies. And he said, no, no, we're going to map out 1 day a week as a starting point that you definitely go out and nobody goes with you, and so on. I think we picked Fridays. It's changed back and forth over the years, but I think we picked Fridays. We don't do it Fridays anymore because Gigi figured out we do Fridays anyway, generally. So she wanted a separate day.
And Gigi's the boss in that house.
That's right. So now we do Wednesdays without fail, and most Fridays, and some other surprises too, but at least one a week by ourselves, nobody else. Several times in restaurants, people have recognized us and come up and, hi, how are you? May we join you? I said, no. If I wanted you to join us, I would have invited you a few days ago. This is date night, just Gigi and me. So we'll set up a time, but not now. Thank you. And they only do that once, by the way. You go through the town one couple at a time. After a while, no one's asking anymore, which is fine too. But he had me map out 4 long weekends, 1 night a week, etc. And there's some other things that birthday dinners and Valentine's and so on that are on the thing. So I don't have to think of them. With Gigi's birthday, it's her birthday, May 28th, but on May 26th, it says Gigi's birthday, 28th, card, ? Gift, ? Restaurant reservations, ? And so on. And so my only fear in life now is someone stealing my daily calendar, because I don't have a clue what I'm supposed to do tomorrow except by looking at it. So that's systemization. And I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, submit another one next week. And then the other one I got was a guy named Ralph Standish. And Ralph asked, are your sons, I guess I've said that I have some sons, in selling? And would you advise them to go into selling? I want them happy and productive. I couldn't care less what they do. And I don't mean this in a demeaning way, because selling is the highest when practiced professionally using some version of sales infiltration. Selling is the highest paid profession on earth. A top-notch salesperson makes more money than most attorneys, most doctors, most anything. If you're the have sales talent, will travel type of person, it's not a fallback position, but frequently it is because you started out wanting to be a dentist and things didn't work out, or you became a dentist and you didn't like it after all. Selling is always an opening for you, because except in high tech medical devices and geophysics stuff, I'm making up words, I don't even know what they mean. You can get a job in selling without basically any qualifications. If you can close sales, if you're a sales infiltrator. We used to have a joke in Holiday Magic Cosmetics, carried a small pocket mirror like you ladies might carry in your purse in our side suit pocket. And when someone says, well, I don't know if I'm qualified, we'd pull the mirror out, put it under their nose. And if we got vapor, we say, you're qualified. That was all they asked me when I got in Holiday Magic. Are you able to walk? Can you follow directions? Can you go from the phone booth you're in to 1447 West Peachtree Street, Suite 300, and be here by noon? That was the first qualification. Because I was able to do all that and walk in, they assumed, I guess, they didn't put a mirror under my nose that time, but they did it other times. They assumed I was qualified. So I joined the business, didn't have the money to pay the parking. I didn't notice it was a paid parking lot, didn't have the money to pay the parking after the interview that I went to September 15th, 1965, and left the building by pretending like I didn't see the parking attendant. Looked the other way and drove right past his outstretched hand. And that's how Zig Ziglar, Ben Gay, and Jimmy Rucker, the greatest salesperson I ever personally worked with, got into Holiday Magic. I was flat broke, didn't have whatever it was, 75 cents, $1, $3 to get out of the parking lot. But I was motivated to get in. So less than, I'm saying a week, 10 days later, I gave the guy who held that meeting, Bill Dempsey, I gave him the equivalent in today's money of $50,000. The guy who couldn't get out of the parking lot raised, it was 5,000, but it's been long enough now where the equivalent of $50,000 to get in the business. Sufficiently inspired, just about anybody can raise just about any amount of money. I wasn't qualified. Nobody asked me if I was qualified. Nobody asked me about my education. It was, are you willing to take a shot at selling cosmetic distributorships to other people? And my answer was yes, and I was in. 2 years later, a little over 2 years later, maybe 2 years and a couple of months, I was president of the company and a multimillionaire. So would I recommend selling to my kids? Certainly. One was killed in a car crash, so that's not an option for him. One is a very successful attorney. I assume, we don't really talk about selling, but I assume that selling new clients is an important part of his job. You have his book, by the way, Don't Let Your Past Hold You Back,
I
Lamont
do.
Robbins. Yeah.
Lamont,
Uh,
yeah. It's a great.
and he's a wonderful story. And my other son, my son, but biologically he's Gigi's son, a stepson, has to sell. It's not really if you ask him what he did, I'm sure he'd come up with some technical name, but he has to sell clients on letting him change all the locks in their hotels, apartment complexes, and so on to the new fancy things, retina identification,
Mhm.
wave your card, hop up and down, turn around 3 times type lock. I prefer a key, but he's now fixed our front door where I go around the back. It's easier to get in that way. It's so high tech, I don't know how to open it. So he's sort of a salesperson, but
Sounds
the key is do what you want. And if all else fails, I can show you how to become a multimillionaire selling.
there you go. I wanted to go back very quickly, and I love these questions because we can actually take up a whole interview with them and
Sure.
maybe just kind of touch on, what we've started to talk about. But that's the beauty of this conversation. We're going to go wherever it leads us. It's not all written in stone. But when you're talking, and once we started this podcast and you had taught me how you systemize things, and I used to use it at a glance a long time ago, and somehow I got out of it. And I am a techie nerd. I'm a nerd in stilettos, but I also live in the deep south, hurricane season. Our power comes and goes, and sometimes it's like, I'm going to be in Florida. I'll see you later. So we just never know. And frankly, I get irritated by my, online scheduler beeping at me all the time. It's like, stop it. just stop it. So, I mean, I do both. I'm like you, but I've got the planner. And what I did not do, but I'm going to as soon as we're done here, is remind myself to fill the bird feeders. You've got
Yeah,
fish, I've got birds.
yeah.
You know, and I kind of noticed yesterday because the back of my house is all windows and my cats get out there, and I bought the house because of the windows. Like, here you go. You can sit there and cheep all day long. Cheep, 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 cheep in there. There's talking at squirrels and birds. And I realized that I wasn't hearing them, or they weren't, crouched over the windowsills. And I went, huh. I looked at the bird feeders and went, oh, okay. I'm starving them to death. So I was out in the garage this morning grabbing the bag and filling them. But did I write it down? No, but I will.
Yeah,
And I
and
think like about
do
two
it,
weeks would be good.
yeah, do it every Saturday. And if they don't need filling, fine. You scratch it
Right.
out and move on with your life, but you write down next Saturday at the same time.
Well, I don't know how long the birds have moved off. I mean, I don't know. Did they go to the next house? Are they in another neighborhood? I'm looking around going, where are my birds? Because it was not at all unusual to see just all of a sudden you see this swoop of birds coming up from the ground and wandering around in the top of my pecan trees in the canopy. And that's fascinating to watch. But I didn't notice when they were no longer there because I wasn't feeding them.
But that's a little trick.
So they're not loyal, by the way. Birds are not loyal. I'm going to tell
No,
you right now.
neither are cats. Shut the kitty door, which used to be the dog door, but shut the kitty door and for a full day. And temporarily, we have two that live here that came for a meal one day, but two that live here. But they'll move on and punish us if the kitty door is down 24 hours for some reason and they can't get in. We don't see them for another 24 hours. They're punishing us.
Oh,
So
well, I fed the birds today, so I'm hoping they'll say, "Oh, okay, well, we love her again," but I don't know how many days it'll take. I have cardinals out there. I've got mourning doves. I've got little tiny blackbird. Don't ask me what the birds are. I know the two. There's just a ton of birds, all different sizes, but they're not there. So shame on
well,
me. It's going in.
did you
It's
hear
going in.
any of them yell daily planner, Denise?
I did.
Daily
Yep.
planner.
I hear it in my head now. So it's going in there. But it's odd the things that you can miss if you don't have it written down.
Yeah, and in selling, I don't do it anymore because it's so automatic and or I don't have to do it anyway. I used to have 5 cold calls. Probably in the early days, it was a bigger number than that, but call 5 people that you don't know or don't know well or haven't followed up with us a long time. 5 cold calls a day used to be in the daily planner. And that's how little things like that fill the pipeline to the point after a while, you don't need to fill the pipeline. Word of mouth carries you. You and I were talking before we got on about a guy who wanted to charge me $3,500 to be on a podcast. And he said, well, I say, no, thank you. In so many words, it weren't, pardon me, weren't quite that polite, but anyway, no, thank you. He said, well, how do you get on podcasts and book speeches and stuff? I said, well, I've reached that point where it's a high-tech marketing thing. I answer the phone and respond to emails. He says, is that enough? I said, it's more than I want. So yeah, it's plenty. But that's one of those things down the road. If you're in sales and you're getting your daily planner right, whatever number of cold calls it ought to be in person, on the phone, email, whatever. Of course, nowadays with email and its various cousins, you could probably send out 20 a day and make telephone calls and make some personal calls. But the good news is when you've done that for a while, some faster than others, and I wasn't planning this in advance, it just sort of happened. You get to a point where you don't have to do that. We used to run full page ads for the closers in Entrepreneur, Salesman's Opportunity, Success, and so on every month, thousands of dollars in full page ads to sell the book back in the early days. I haven't run a paid ad for the Closers series or any of the books in over 30 years. I don't remember when we ran the last one, but I know 30 years ago we weren't running them, because after a while, word of mouth, the momentum builds up. And so if you're a salesperson listening to this, pay your dues now. I don't claim that I knew it, but I do promise you I know the result, accidental though it may have been. The way I became the top salesperson in every organization I've ever been with, frequently even as a consultant, just helping other people while showing them what to do. I was number one for the period of time I was doing that. And the way I did it was I came early, stayed late, and worked on weekends and systematized my day, where the vast majority of it was spent selling. I think we've talked about this, but let me just highlight it again. I had a young salesman who worked for me, and let's see, this young salesman would now be 70, I guess. But I had him when he was 20 and trying to support himself, making bets on a payphone at the racetrack.
Oh my.
And but I saw something in him, moved him aside, showed him a better way to live, etc. And he got so good that I was sitting in the phone room one day. Used to have a desk in several parts of the company, so I could just walk in, sit down, and go to work. But mainly I was listening to the people, either in the call center or the outgoing sales room or the whatever, so I could hear what was really going on in the business. And when he sold, his closing rate was phenomenal, but frequently he wasn't selling because we do seminars on the weekends and he was on the way to the dry cleaners to get his suits cleaned. And then he was doing this and then he was doing this. But when he sat down, put on the headset, he was a killer. So I said to him, let's hire someone for you to do everything but sell: dry cleaning, car washing, uh, picking up the kids at school, whatever, anything that takes you away from the headset and selling. And he did. He hired a person. And then eventually he hired another person to do the setup calls, to make appointments. So he would go from one call to the next with a click of a button, no dialing, nothing, just there was always a call waiting for him. So you delegate, 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 and then you have a backup system for yourself, and then you teach them their backup systems. I asked you to do something the other day, and she said, I'll have to check my calendar. And I thought, oh my God, I
She's a
created a
convert.
monster. Yeah, I have the calendar.
She
You
showed you.
you don't need a calendar. You wait to be told. She said, yeah, that's cute. I got to check my calendar.
You know, I don't know why you even try. Seriously. She
Yeah.
wins. That's just all there is to it. But we're talking about the things that you can do, and you're talking about cold calling, but I had a thought, and it's a little bit different. And I started doing this last week. It just occurred to me that because as you know, I'm writing the Closers Part 4, which is about podcasting and marketing and sales. And it occurred to me, as it always does, because I broadcast, 3 times a week, I can't get away from thinking about podcasting. And it occurred to me that I always, after the show is over, I call my guests. A lot of magic happens in there. And they'll say, listen, stay in touch. If anything is happening that's new in your industry or your profession, whatever it was that you want to talk about, let me know. Well, they don't, because I think they might think they're, being, I don't know, just giving it
Intrusive or pushy.
intrusive, yeah, or pushy, and they don't do it. And I mean it. I mean, get in touch. Some will, but it's rare. So last week I set up a quick email, and I'm so proud of this because it's not something I would have thought of. And it's, just basically said, I would love to catch up as a subject line. And then a couple of quick sentences. Listen, it's been a while, because I was going back to my podcast from last year, not the most recent ones because I've already spoken with them, but I went all the way back to last year, and there's a ton of them, as you know. And I started shooting off emails of 15 a day. And I thought, well, we'll see. I didn't have any real expectations. I've got 2 calls today. I've got people are like, oh, I would love to catch up, because my question was, I would love to know what you're up to. I can share some of the things that I'm up to. Maybe we can help each other out or something like that. Not
Perfect.
quite that crude.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I mean, I started getting emails. Denise, thank you for contacting me. I would love to chat. I'm booked already. I think I've got 7 from the last one of 15, and I've got 5 or 8, I think, from the second round. And
Now
people were very, oh God, I'm so glad to hear from you. I'll be darned. So
find the
get out of
sweet
your own
spot.
way.
Yeah. Find the sweet spot in your calendar. 6 weeks for clipping toenails was too long.
Right.
4 is about right. But find the sweet spot in your calendar and then write down, send out the whatever you call it, give it a name,
Would love to catch up.
email.
That's what
It,
I called it. Would love to catch up.
all right, send out the catch up email dash move up 4 weeks, let's say. And you just do that automatically every 4 weeks. And if that gives you too many people, cut it to expand it to 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. But let that become part of your systemization,
And it's part of, you've already met them. It's not a cold call.
right?
These are people you have met. You've spent time with them. In my case, I've read their books. I've reviewed their books. I've introduced many of them to other high level podcasts. We stay in touch to some degree, but have we had conversations about what they're up to now? Things could have changed. What am I up to now? Things have definitely changed. Let's chat. And just the overwhelming response was, oh, I'm so glad to hear from you. I clutched my heart. I really did. It never occurred to me to do something like this.
Well, now it has, and you write it down, and it's part of your
Mhm.
systematized life,
Exactly.
and that whole thing goes away. We were going to talk about sales infiltration. This sort of leads me to it, what you're talking about, systematizing things. I say become the vice president of when you're infiltrating a person or a company, you become vice president of their fill in the blank sales department, human resource, whatever it is you do. In my case, I strive to become the vice president in charge of what do we do next? Call Ben Gay. We need to hire somebody. Call Ben Gay. He may not know the person, but he knows the person who knows the person. So
Right.
call Ben Gay. In this field of delegation, I spend most of my time teaching people how to become the vice president in charge of. It's also something you do with your people. You teach them to be the vice president of. I have a vice president in charge of keeping our lawn nice. I don't have to think about it. I don't want to have it done once a week. It doesn't need it once a week. I want to have it done when it needs being done. So our guy lives nearby, or we live on his path on the way from his regular job to home. So he comes by, he tells me, and looks at the lawn, and when it needs doing, he does it. He doesn't ask, is it okay? Is it okay if I trim the rose bushes? Is it whatever? He's vice president of the yard, and therefore it's off my table. We have a vice president in charge of fixing things that are broke. We have a main house, a granny flat, which we rent, and a couple of other rental properties. We have a vice president in charge of it. If your sink breaks in a rental house, you don't call me, you call our guy. And he happens to be a plumber, but he either does it or knows who does it, and he fixes it. So it's almost like we don't have rental property. It's almost like we don't have a lawn. I have a young girl she put up a sign on the mailbox, on the cluster box, that said, the gist of it was, hi, I'm trying to earn money to go on a trip and pay for my sports uniform. I'll come to your house and wash your car in the driveway. So you have to go to the whatever Splasherville, I think they call it here. You don't have to go there. You don't have to wait in line. And so on. She just comes to the house. So I said, look, you have a project you're working on now, but if you want this as a regular job, I will make you vice president in charge of keeping the cars clean. And she said, I'd love that. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I don't call you. You wash them when they need them and leave me a note and I'll send you a check. So I'm out of the car washing business. I don't
Now,
call
did she earn her keep though?
oh yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Sometimes they just
She
don't. They're like, oh, and I'm like, what, what the
Well,
heck
I
was
can
that?
also be quick to fire,
Me too.
yeah. You either do it right or you don't. But I had a little chat with her and so on. But I said, I'm making you vice president. She's 17, I think. This will be your first vice presidency. Your vice president in charge
I
of
love
keeping
that.
these 4 cars clean. This is my son, his roommate, and R2. These 4 cars, when you see them out and they look like they could do a little spiff up, do it, all 3, all 4, whatever. And when the tab is such that you want to send me a bill or leave a note, do it. And we'll send you the check. I haven't had to think about, is the car clean? Is it dirty? Does it need vacuuming? The one I tend to drive, and so on. So I teach them how to be sales infiltrators to make my life easier. They are vice president in charge of this or that and so on. And a lot of them are more significant than that. I have a vice president in charge of finance, who's been my financial mentor since 1967. And nothing goes on with any significant amount of money that P. Michael Hunt doesn't approve and or it's run by him. Nothing. And therefore, I don't have to think about it. So here's this investment. I say, send me the details in an email that I can forward, and I will send it to my guy. And they said, no, we'll just contact him directly. I said, no, I will look at it first. And if it's forward worthy, he will get it next. And if we're going to do anything, he'll tell you. If you don't hear from a guy you don't know, don't worry about it. So, but
Yeah, it went
it's
into the
off
trash.
I make
Right.
sure that the reason I check bank balances every day is to make sure that something fraudulent didn't happen during the night. And if I'm going to approve a bunch of bills, it's probably a good idea to approve them from an account that has some money in it.
There is that.
Yeah. But the serious ones, I'd say over $10,000, get run by P. Michael Hunt, and that's it. If he says, the other day we were talking, I said, did so and so ever contact you? He said, oh yeah, it was a sham deal or scam deal. So I said, oh, okay. And we went on to something else. I didn't say but or explain it to me or whatever. He's VP of all financial affairs in our lives. And if he says no, that's the answer. I don't need to know why. He's been at this for longer than most of our listeners have been alive. He's handled the finances, some names that everybody on this call would know. Uh, he knows what he's doing. So it's one of those things off my plate. I actually, whilst talking about all that and delegating and sales infiltration and so on, was thinking, what is it that you actually do? Me. And the answer, after I was talking and thinking simultaneously, was those things that require a personal touch. You and me talking Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's one that can't be delegated. It can. You could get somebody to replace me, but
No, I can't. I
if
would just
it's
shut it down.
if it's in my name, it can't be delegated. I can't delegate talking to one of my mentoring clients. They paid to talk to me. But that's about all that I haven't managed to move off to somebody who's better than I am at filling the subject. Oh, why do you feed the fish? Because I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. One of our tenants said to me one day while seeing me do it, I've never watched The Sopranos, not an episode, not 5 minutes, but I know it was a
Me
big deal
either.
for 10 years. And he said, you remind me of, I guess it was Tony Soprano, whoever it was, feeding the ducks. And apparently that was a part of the show. He fed the ducks because he enjoyed feeding the ducks. And he said, I know on Wednesdays and Fridays, the fish are going to be fed. I can set my watch by it. He said, why do you do that? You got a lawn guy, you got a whatever guy. I said, I enjoy it. You throw out the stuff and 15 of those big goldfish swim to the surface and they seem happy to see me. And thousands of those little mosquito eaters swim the length of the pool. And that fascinates me. Years ago, we had, talking about systemization, we had, I guess we just decided not to use, no one was using the swimming pool, so I cut off the service. Then it got a little yucky looking, so I bought some fish and threw in there. Turned out they weren't the mosquito eating kind. So I called the county and I said, what do I do? And they said, well, we'll bring over 5 fish. So they brought over this. He said, this is our starter kit. And I said, how much can 5 fish eat? He said, well, you'll be surprised. So he threw in the 5 fish and left. That's, I'm guessing, 10 years ago. Then the county started coming back saying, can we get some fish out of your pond? We need some somewhere else, and so on. They have taken thousands of fish over the years and even offered to pay me. And I said, well, I don't do a whole lot, so I feel bad about that. But you want to send me a check, send it. They never have that I'm aware of. And then I have thousands in the swimming pool. It all started from 5 fish a few years ago. So I was able to remove, in this mosquito-ridden area, I was able to remove mosquitoes from my things to worry about. No one within 2 blocks of our house has seen a mosquito in 10 years or for 8 years, let's say. So I removed it. It's off the table. I've delegated it. We have a vice president. We have thousands of vice presidents in charge of eating mosquito eggs.
They need to erect a statue. I can see it now. Ben, we are running out of time. So
All right.
what I propose we do is next week we pick up at the same spot we were going to pick up at 261. Although I think everything we're talking about is pure sales infiltration. So I'm not at all
Yeah,
worried about it.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I cleverly doubled back 2 or 3 times, as you may have noticed, to mention selling. So much of life is selling. And so much of
Yeah.
selling is just understanding life. Here's
And
one. People are going to
persuasion.
do what they've always done.
Yeah.
Once you got that down, you pretty much got it all figured out. You may not have names, dates, and faces to put on every instance, but if you know their history, you know what they're going to do.
This is true. And, really, as humans, we are not all that shocking or surprising. I mean, if you see what
No,
people have done, if you're observing them, you know who the lunatics are, you know who those are fairly nice people. They're interesting. And then again, you know who the lunatics are if you're paying attention.
absolutely.
So don't vote for them.
And if they
Quit
were
voting for them.
and if they were ever lunatics, they're still lunatics.
That's exactly
It's
right.
not there's not a lunacy pill yet.
No, it doesn't wash off like we say in the South. Bless your little heart. And if we add that little, that means you're too stupid for it to ever be fixable. So we just avoid you. Well, listen, everybody. Ben has already told you where you can find him. And I'm easy to find online. I'm actually way too easy sometimes, I think. But you're welcome to contact me directly, toll free at 888-719-6711. That number does not ring on my desk. I don't permit it to. So you'll need to leave a message and I will return your call.
One more time.
At 888-719-6711, and I'll return your call within 24 hours. Normally, well, don't call me at midnight. It'll be the next day. But listen, everybody, thank you for joining us, and be sure to find us on your Partner in Success Radio. Just look for us by name, Ben Gay III and Denise Griffitts, and or the Closers Inner Circle podcast. Truly, you can't throw a stick on the internet without hitting us. So, Ben, I will see you next week.
Look forward to it. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Tell Gigi hi.
I will.